Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to the next edition of Reading with Shilo. We are for chapter 3 and chapter 4 of Barak and Deborah United by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor and his wife, Mary L. Windsor. Should have read this yesterday, but we're here now. We're going to go ahead and get into it. Chapter 3. On his way to Shiloh, Barak met a man who recently passed by that city. "Are you going to Shiloh?" inquired that man anxiously. "Yes, why do you ask?" "Criminals and robbers were fighting at the tabernacle when I passed by," informed the stranger. "It was a terrible situation. Somebody needs to help them." "Who are they fighting?" asked Barak, looking worried. "They were fighting the priests and the Levites," he said. "Did you help them?" No, I couldn't get involved. I have a family to support." "How many were there?" Barak asked with concern. "I really don't know for sure, 20 or 30. Shameful." "Robbers fought in the house of God," he said, shaking his head as he turned and continued on his way. Then Barak thought about the city of Shiloh. It was about 10 miles north of Bethel and was situated off to the right side of the same road that passed through the city of Bethel. Shiloh became the national capital of the Israelites. It was at Shiloh that Joshua cast lots for the division of the land and sent out spies to bring back a report on it. Here, Joshua and Eleazar, the high priest, gave orders to the Levites and to the priests to set up the tabernacle. Barak could see the hills and the valleys as he traveled that road, and he couldn't get the robbers off his mind. He was riding through the territory of the tribe of Ephraim. He passed by some of the people in the caravans going to Megiddo, Sidon, Tyre, Damascus, Kirkamash, and other places. These caravans included one-hump camels. Later, he noticed some shepherds taking their sheep to new green pastures, and bleating sounds of the sheep could be heard by everyone. As Barak rode onward thinking about the robbers, he knew that he had to do something and do it fast. There was no time to waste. After riding rapidly for about 10 or 15 minutes, Barak lifted up his eyes and saw the city of Shiloh in the distance. Barak was alone. He knew that there was not much he could do by himself. There were very few people in this small city at this time of the year. Therefore, he thought of a stratagem to scare off the robbers. Not too far from him, there was a dry hill. He rode his white horse up one side of it like a skillful equestrian, racing back and forth, kicking up dust with the hooves of his horse. With his ram's horn, he blew the sound of an attacking army. Barak hoped that this stratagem would work. At last, Barak rode toward the city of Shiloh with great speed to see what damage the robbers had done. And as he rode, his every movement was replete with grace and rhythm. Bending down closer to the white mane, pressing his knees against the side of his horse, Barak ordered his horse onward with his neck scarf blowing in the wind. "Faster, Laban, faster," he urged him. He passed by many houses and inns constructed with baked mud and straw, and from beige stones found in the land of Israel. The owners of the inns would earn extra money from the thousands of pilgrims who would visit the tabernacle on the Hebrew holidays of Passover, Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. As Barak approached the tabernacle area, he could see the rectangular enclosure which surrounded the entire structure of the courtyard, the holy place, and the Holy of Holies. Approaching even closer with great urgency, his mind reflected on the robbers. When Barak approached within 50 cubits of the sanctuary, he could see some of the bandits riding off frantically. He decided not to pursue them because he was alone. No doubt his stratagem of stirring up the dust and blowing the ram's horn had worked. He dismounted from his horse in a stately manner, held his head high, and looked around in all directions, searching for any sudden danger. He wondered, had they desecrated had they desecrated the Holy of Holies within the veil. Barak had to press his way slowly through the standing crowd in order to talk to the Levite guards at the entrance to the courtyard of the tabernacle. A multicolored curtain of purple, red, blue, and white draped the entrance of the tabernacle. As he pressed forward, he remembered from his previous visits that the tent of the tabernacle was located in the western half of the court, and the largest area of the court was situated in the front of the tent. When Barak approached the guards at the entrance to the tabernacle, the ancients crowd demanded to know the details of what happened. Some bandits forcibly took some gold shekels and some other coins from the treasury of the sanctuary, and 2 of them were killed in the foolish act of robbery. The rest of the robbers were scared off by the loud sound of the ram's horn, which came from beyond the hills, explained one of the guards. Then Barak stepped up to the guard and spoke. My name is Barak, and I came to see Elder Ariel. That name sounds familiar. You wouldn't know who blew the ram's horn, would you? Yes, it was I. You know, if you hadn't blown that horn, many lives would have been lost. Follow me, and I'll take you to the elder. The guard led him to one of the private tent chambers near the rectangular enclosure. There he introduced Barak to the 89-year-old elder. The elderly man had yellowish skin, and one could discern that he had mixed blood in his ancestry. Barak smiled and bowed to him slightly and said, Peace be unto you, O honorable one. Peace, replied the elder. You wouldn't happen to be the General Barak from the tribe of Naphtali, would you? Barak nodded his head in agreement and said, I am he. While he spoke, the elder cast his light green eyes down at the ram's horn Barak had stuck in his waist. No doubt you must be the same man that blew the horn and scared away the robbers. Yes, I am, answered Barak modestly. Then it is a blessing that you came to our town. Because when the bandits heard the sound of the ram's horn, they stopped fighting and robbing and made haste out of town. Our people are very grateful to you. It was just a small thing that I did. That was no small thing. If it had not been for you, perhaps some Levites would have died in the fighting. As it stands now, we have only a few flesh wounds. Did anyone recognize any of them? No, they all had their faces covered with part of their white headdress. However, I did hear one of them refer to the other, who seemed to have been the leader, as Reuben, and he walked with a slight limp. The elder paused for a moment he paused for a moment and passed by a small vase containing a fern plant, and then he continued, Oh, what brings you to our town, General Barak? I have an important letter from Deborah from the city of Bethel. Do you know her? Do I know her? Yes, he answered, pointing to a cushion for Barak to take a seat. Deborah and I have had many conversations, especially about a certain court trial that took place in the city of Beersheba. She has a very good reputation. After reading the letter, he commented, there shouldn't be any problem for you to obtain a certificate of authority. Good, Barak smiled. You come very highly recommended. She said that you could catch a thief even if he crawls in a foxhole. Do you agree with her? Your Excellency, I am the youngest son of my father's house. Who am I to question the prophetess and the prettiest woman in Canaan? I understand. Now all I need is a signature of 2 or more judges. Just wait here. While Barak waited for Ariel to return, he could smell the aroma of sweet meat roasting on the altar of the inner court. Then he took a deep breath and leaned back with delight. His appetite was stirred up, and he wished he could savor its delights. Within a short while, Ariel returned with 2 judges and a scribe. The elder told the 2 other judges about the strategy that Barak used to scare off the bandits, and they thanked him for his ingenuity. Then Ariel dictated the provisions of the certificate, and the scribes wrote them down on papyrus. Ariel placed the seal of the court on the document, and all the judges signed it. The two judges and the scribes departed, and Ariel remained with Barak. Elder Ariel rolled up the papyrus and gave it to Barak. Well, it looks like everything is all set. Thank you, he nodded. I'm just sorry that I waited so long to see Deborah, because I could have had this certificate earlier. That's all right, Barak. Sometimes, if it were not for the last moment, some things would never get done. Moreover, the work that you are undertaking will be a great service to our people. As you probably know, the enemies amongst us are sometimes worse than the ones from without. I agree, Elder Ariel, said Barak, that our people at times can be their own worst enemy. Finally, Barak understood more fully why Deborah asked him to accept this task. Tell me, Barak, is the war situation with the troublesome Canaanites getting any worse? It is worsening. Sisera has increased his patrols throughout the Jezreel Valley and other areas. With his control of this valley, he has managed to divide the Hebrew nation north and south of the Jezreel. Our people are afraid to use the open roads and to travel through the plains. Because of this, I have stepped up our patrols. The situation keeps me very busy, and I believe all-out war will come. I want to unite more Hebrew tribes against Sisera, but it is difficult. Ariel placed his thumb and index finger of his right hand on each side of his mouth, appearing to be in deep thought. I see, Ariel paused. If this is true, will you have the time to apprehend fugitives and bring them to justice? I'll make the time. I promised Deborah that I will bring them in to stand trial. I promised Deborah that I would bring them in to stand trial. I understand, Ariel groaned suspiciously. You promised. It seems that you might have other interest in her. Is that not so? Well, yes. She has many good qualities, and I like her. Is there anything wrong with that? No, of course not. However, I would hate to see you overload yourself. You see, it is our custom for a man or woman to perform everything that proceeds out of his or her mouth. Here lately, the law and the other customs of our people have been disregarded. And that's the reason there is so much distrust among the tribes of Israel. Oh, yeah, like, you can? Oh, man. Here lately, the law and the other customs of our people have been disregarded. And that's the reason there is so much distrust among the tribes of Israel. I understand, he said, as he looked up to the two brown, impressive cherubim embroidered on the purple curtain. When Deborah asked for my help, I promised that I would give it. I meant it even if I have to make a great sacrifice. Very well, I believe you. But before it is all over, you may have to sacrifice your life. Remember this, Deborah is no ordinary woman. She has her own wick business. She is a spiritual advisor, a judge, ruler, prophetess, and a mother in Israel to many people. Now there is something which I must warn you. Some people complain that Deborah takes a man's role, but in these terrible days, good men are hard to find. And it was the need of the hour that pushed her into this position. Can you explain to me how she was pushed into this? This needs an hour, as you call it. This need of the hour, as you call it. Yes, Barak, but first let us go over to my house and have supper. Then we'll talk further, he offered, as he lifted himself up slowly, supporting himself with his staff. Let me help you, Elder, Barak said, grabbing hold of his arm. That was chapter 3. We're going to chapter 4. Chapter 4. As the evening approached, they both walked down the path about 50 cubits north of the tabernacle to Ariel's house. When we are sitting comfortably in my house, I want to tell you, Barak, about the details of the court trial in the city of Beersheba. At that time, Deborah was in court and her reputation was in question. That sounds interesting, said Barak. I would like to hear more when you're ready. Then they passed by the palm and fig trees, which lined up along the way. Then Barak picked up a small branch of the fig tree that had fallen to the ground. The branch was comparatively small and light brown. The leaves were dark green and resembled the shape of a pear. Barak smelled the leaves, which emitted the fragrance of the sweet skin of a ripe orange. The sweet smell reminded him of whatever the fragrance Deborah was wearing when he was with her, and he held the branch close to his heart. Don't get caught up, my boy. Don't get caught up. They entered into the gate of the 5 cubits high stone wall and walked to the courtyard in the back. Beautiful pink and purple flowers were growing along the side of the wall. They sat down on soft cushions placed along the side of the low stone round table. This table was only about 1/2 cubit from the floor. Then Ariel called his housekeeper and instructed him to prepare an extra serving for Barak. After the introductions, the housekeeper asked Barak, "Would you like something to drink?" "Just water, please, thank you." "Where were you last?" asked Ariel. "You were getting ready to explain to me how Deborah was pushed." "Oh, yes, how Deborah was pushed into her social position." The answer to your question is in 2 parts. First, what qualified her for the public work she does? And second, what were the social conditions that pushed her into her public role? He explained as the big orange-red sun was setting in the west. "Yes, this is what I want to know." "You must understand, Barak, Deborah's parents died of an unknown disease when she was 4 years old, and her uncle Yoetz helped to raise her. Her uncle taught her about our laws, customs, and history. He was also one of the leaders of his tribe. On many occasions, when he had to go to discuss tribal matters, he would take her with him." "It sounds as though they were close," said Barak, observing the housekeeper placing the water on the table. "Yes, they were very close. By the way, Deborah had a great memory. As her uncle grew older, his memory waned, and he would rely on her to help him to remember things he had forgotten. When she went with him, she preferred to sit in an adjacent room and listen to the discussions rather than to go play with the other children. She preferred to be around other people. She preferred to be around other people and often said that she could not learn anything from children her age. Deborah listened to her uncle's instructions on history, philosophy, and the law month after month and year after year until she became proficient in legal matters. Wonderful. Barak stood up, took one step, held his hand behind his back, and gazed at the setting sun reflecting its red rays on the white clouds. Now Ariel the elder began to tell Barak about a special event that Deborah had experienced several years ago while she had visited her brother Asher in the city of Beersheba. She could not talk to him long because he was the recorder for the local court, and a trial was about to begin. In view of this, Deborah decided to stay around and to listen to the proceedings. Deborah's brother introduced her to Shalom, the head judge. After a short talk, the judge was so impressed with her demeanor and her knowledge of legal matters, he invited her to participate in the trial against Zedekiah, who was charged with adultery. Who taught you about the law, Deborah? She replied, "It was my uncle Yoetz." That name sounds familiar. It will be interesting to see how you perform in this trial. I have a feeling that she will be found not guilty. You do. We'll see. Usually the trials were held in a small brick building at the entrance gate of this town, but the crowd was too large, so they held the court outside under three large palm trees. After the preliminary formalities were finished, the head judge among the seven on the panel asked, "Is everyone ready?" "Yes, we are, Your Honor," answered one of the judges for the prosecution. "The court of Beersheba will now begin its proceedings," said Shalom. "The head judge, are the witnesses and the defendant present?" "Yes, they are, Judge Shalom," answered the officer of the court. "Zedekiah, the wife of Abraham, the merchant, is charged with adultery." "Zedekiah, what is your answer to this serious charge?" Zedekiah was a petite, 5'4" tall young lady with a smooth caramel complexion. I am absolutely innocent. Hold your peace," interrupted the head judge. "You will get your chance to speak." Rising to his feet, the prosecutor said, "I call the first witness, Dan Ben Shaphat. Dan, do you swear the holy oath to speak the truth?" "I do." "Dan, please tell the court what you know about this case." "Well, it isn't very much, but on the late morning of the 27th day of last month, I saw Zedekiah holding the hand of a man as I walked by her house, looking through the gate." "Have you ever seen that man before that time?" asked the prosecutor. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I know everyone in this town, and I never saw that man before the 27th of last month." "Thank you, Dan." The prosecutor then turned to Zedekiah and asked, "Do you swear our holy oath to tell the truth?" "Yes, I do." "Was your husband at home on the 27th day of last month?" "No, he went out of town on business, and he hasn't returned yet." "Did any man come to your house on that day?" She answered, "Yes." Then the crowd looked to one another with astonishment. "What is his name, and how long have you known him?" "His name is Benjamin Ben-Hur, and I have known him for over 3 years," she answered, as the crowd roared in surprise, gossiping. "Zedekiah, why did this man come to your house?" "He returned some jewelry which I had loaned to my sister." The prosecutor walked away from her, stopped, and he turned around toward her. "Zedekiah, why didn't your sister bring the jewelry to you instead of Benjamin?" "The reason was she gave up the ghost. But before she died, she told her husband Benjamin to bring the jewelry to me." "Are you claiming that this man Benjamin was married to your sister?" "Yes." "What time of day was it when he arrived at your house?" "It was just before noon." "Where is this brother-in-law now?" "I don't know. I sent for him to testify on my behalf, but he hasn't shown up yet." "You don't expect your lover to show up, do you?" "He's not my lover." "Do you have any maid servants?" "Yes, I have two." "Where were your maid servants when your brother-in-law came to your house?" Zedekiah looked down and remained silent. "Answer the question," ordered the head judge. Zedekiah raised her head slowly. "I sent them to the market," she said reluctantly. "How convenient this was for you." "Isn't it true that you sent your maid servants away so that you could be alone with your lover?" "No, it isn't true," she yelled, crying. "Then why was a married woman like you seen holding the hand of another man?" "I don't know," she answered, looking very confused. "It happened so quickly." She paused. "Furthermore, he was my brother-in-law." The prosecutor looked at her suspiciously and said, "Oh, I see. This is your excuse." Then the chief judge interjected. "Deborah, Do you have any comments? Deborah rose to her feet, raised her head slowly, and spoke softly. It is clear to me that there is more to this case than what meets the eye. If we put to death on false charges every innocent young woman, there wouldn't be any women left to marry your sons, responded Deborah, as the crowd smiled and chuckled. The prosecutor turned to the audience and spoke. Deborah calls her an innocent woman who would be put to death on false charges. Now we shall see. He walked 3 steps towards Zedekiah and stared in her eyes. You admitted that your husband was out of town. You admitted that you sent your maid servants away. You admitted that you held the hand of another man on that day. Moreover, everything was made more convenient for you and your lover. Zedekiah, why don't you confess your guilt and save the court money and time? No, 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 I'm innocent, she sobbed, dropping her head into the palm of her hands, and her light blue mantilla mixed. What's a mantilla? Her light blue mantilla a light blue mantilla. 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 A mantilla. Mantilla, scarf worn over the head and shoulders. A light scarf worn over the head and shoulders. A short light cape or cloak. A short light cape or cloak. A mantilla. No, 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 I'm innocent. She sobbed, dropping her head into the palm of her hands, and her light blue mantilla or coat, cape or cloak, mantilla, mixed with pink flower fell from her head, exposing her long black curly hair. As Deborah watched and heard the proceedings, she said to her handmaid Sarah, "This woman is going to need lots of help. Oh Lord, I beseech thee, please give me the wisdom to help her." The prosecutor continued, "Were you once a close friend with this man Benjamin?" "Yes," answered Zedekiah, as the audience sighed in surprise. "Isn't it true that you were once betrothed to marry him?" She remained silent for a moment. "Yes," she answered hesitantly, as fear enveloped her. "Isn't it also true that you have lain with that man, Benjamin?" Zedekiah lowered her head in silence. "Well, answer. Isn't it true?" he demanded. Zedekiah raised her head slowly and labored to speak. "Yes," she snapped, yelling reluctantly, with pain in her voice, knowing that she was incriminating herself. "But that was a long time ago, before I got married." The prosecutor pointed his finger at Zedekiah and then looked at the audience and asked, "Is this who Deborah calls an innocent woman?" Deborah lowered her head a little and remained silent, waving their fist high over their heads. The crowd yelled, "Guilty, guilty, guilty." There was more silence. "Well, Deborah, you have nothing to say?" asked the head judge. Deborah walked slowly towards her seat, appearing to be in deep thought. She stopped and turned towards the head judge and the prosecutor. "People of Beersheba, even if she had lain with Benjamin, that was before she got married to her present husband. She couldn't be guilty of that. Furthermore, Our law requires that a matter be established by 2 or more witnesses. As of now, I have heard from only one. The prosecutor looked at Deborah and gave an insidious smile. We have them, 2 reliable witnesses. The court now calls Ishmael and Catan. These 2 were well-respected businessmen of long standing in the community. The judges and most people in Beersheba knew them. And the word went out that many folks supported the accusations of these men. Sounded like the history of Susanna. Then Deborah whispered to Sarah, this prosecutor is very shrewd. Yes, he blocks you at every turn, but he can't block the Lord. After 2 witnesses came up to the front row, the prosecutor asked them, do you swear our holy oath to speak the truth? We do. Please give the court your complete names and your occupations. I am Ishmael ben Jacob, and I am Catan ben Zeph. We are business partners of Joseph ben Abraham, the husband of Zedekiah. Now, Ishmael and Catan, will you speak to the court what you observed? Asked one of the judges. The older man Ishmael spoke up first. We arrived at the house of our business partner, Joseph ben Abraham, and looked through the opening of the gate and saw Zedekiah holding and kissing the stranger. What was the date that this act took place, and what was the time of day? Asked the prosecutor. Both men answered simultaneously. It was the 27th day of last month around noontime. Catan continued. The stranger fondled her all over her backside. Then they went under the tree surrounded by some bushes, he reported as he looked at Zedekiah. That's lies, 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 shouted Zedekiah with grief and anger. We must have order. We must have order in the court. One more outburst like that and you'll be fined, warned the head judge. At that time, the prosecutor smiled with delight. Deborah turned to her handmaid and said, I don't like the sound of this case. It has all the trimmings of a frame-up. This young lady is going to need help, she said to Deborah in a low tone. At that moment, she said to Sarah, in a low tone. At that moment, Deborah said a short prayer again. O Lord, I beseech thee, let thy truth be revealed. Have you ever seen that man before? Asked the other judge, with his right fist and index finger resting on his chin and jaw. No, Ephraim. No, Your Honor. After that slip of the tongue, the head judge looked at Catan and Ishmael suspiciously. The head judge leaned forward and prodded further. How would you describe this man you claim you saw? Ishmael looked upward and thought for a moment. The man was over 6 feet tall, heavy built, brown skin, black beard, and about 40 years old. Also, he was wearing a light blue tunic. Now let's hear from the other witness, requested one of the judges. Catan, let's hear your side of the story, said another judge. I agree with Ishmael, he stuttered. Speak up, I can't hear you, the judge commanded. Everything that Ishmael told you is exactly what happened, Your Honor. We both looked through the gate at the same time. Did any of you warn the so-called stranger that what he was doing was wrong? No, we were afraid for our lives because he was huge. He was a huge man. It's 2 of y'all. Two of y'all that coward. Did any of you warn the so-called stranger that what he was doing was wrong? No, we were afraid for our lives because he was a huge man. Lies, lies, shouted Zedekiah, once more with tears running down her cheeks. Order, Order! This is enough. You are fined 5 shekels, the head judge reprimanded her. Guilty, 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 shouted many of the people in the courtroom. Our laws say that we only need 2 witnesses to punish, and we have them. Quiet, or I'll clear the court. Officers, if there is another outburst like this, you have my permission to remove anyone from this court. Everyone was completely still. There was a dead silence. Everyone was afraid to speak. Is there anything anyone would like to add before we recess to make our decision? Deborah stepped forward 3 paces, graciously and slowly with a commanding appearance. Your Honor, I have some information which I think will be valuable to this court. This information will cast light on this case and will help bring out the truth. Oh, the head judge uttered. Tell us about this information you have. It is information about the procedure pertaining to the interrogation of witnesses. If it please you, Your Honor, may thy humble servant Deborah suggest that each witness be interrogated separately and more in depth. This is highly irregular, exclaimed the prosecutor. We know that she is guilty. Let's not waste the court's time and pronounce sentence at once. Not too fast, the head judge raised the palm. Not too fast. The head judge raised the palm of his hand at him, indicating for him to hold his peace. Deborah, on what grounds do you support your request? Asked the head judge sympathetically. In the scroll of Deuteronomy, it is written that, and the judges shall make diligent inquisition in regards to legal matters and the questioning of witnesses. This is a waste of time, shouted an angry man from the audience. She is guilty. Finally, 2 officers grabbed the man and removed him from the court. The head judge spoke to Deborah. I assume you have training in this area of the law. Yes, I do. My uncle Yoetz instructed me in these matters. I remember the name more vividly now. Did he not sit on the council of the 70 elders at Shiloh? Yes, he was on the council for many years. The prosecutor interjected once more. Judge Shalom, I vehemently object to Deborah's suggestion. We have the testimony of valuable witnesses. Never before have we had procedures like this in our town. And in this town, we never had a trial like this before. A woman's reputation and life is at stake. The purpose of this court is to seek out the truth so that justice can triumph. For these reasons, I shall permit her to proceed. You may begin, Deborah. The head judge encouraged. Your Honor, can you have Katan, the second witness, escorted from the court area so that I may question Ishmael alone? Yes, I shall allow that. After the usual formalities were complete, Deborah asked Ishmael many questions in the categories of queries, inquiries, and cross-examinations. Deborah continued her battery of questions. Ishmael, how many times would you say you had visited the house of Joseph, husband of Zedekiah? About 15 times. And when you went there, how many times did you see Zedekiah? I would say about 8 times. Did you ever discuss with anyone about the fact that Zedekiah is a beautiful woman? No, answered Ishmael with a surprised look on his face. Do you think that she is beautiful? No, he answered sharply. Aha! Deborah turned to a lady that was standing next to her and asked, do you think that Zedekiah is a beautiful woman? The woman replied, yes, she is very beautiful. This is very strange, Deborah remarked. Ishmael, you are a man, and you don't think that she is beautiful. And the lady next to me thinks that she is very beautiful. This is very strange indeed. The prosecutor then spoke up. I don't see where Deborah is going with this line of questioning. I do, and I will allow it, replied Shamuel. Shalom, my bad, shalom. Deborah, you've made your point. Now I must ask you to get to the specifics. Ishmael, you claim that Zedekiah committed adultery. Tell the court where this act took place, asked Deborah. It took place in the courtyard, under a tree surrounded by bushes. Deborah lowered her head and paused and looked up. What kind of tree was it? I believe it was a fig tree, Ishmael stuttered. Now, in regards to his clothing, what was the color? Light blue. Are you sure? Yes. One more question, Ishmael. Did this act take place before sunset or after sunset? It was before sunset. Next, she summoned the officer of the court to bring in Katan for interrogation. Katan, you said that the defendant was kissing in the courtyard. Exactly where in the courtyard did the kissing take place? Under a tree. He was wiping the sweat from his forehead, looking nervous. What kind of tree? She asked sternly. It was an olive tree. Did this alleged meeting between Zedekiah and the stranger take place before sunset or after? Katan paused and then said, after sunset. Yes, it was after sunset. Deborah turned around slowly and looked at Ishmael and paused. You know you done fucked up. You know you done messed up now. Fig tree and an olive tree. Before sunset, after. Deborah turned around slowly and looked at Ishmael and paused. Ishmael lowered his head and rubbed the upper bridge of his nose. Are you finished, Deborah? Inquired the head judge. Not quite, Your Honor. I have one more question for Katan. What was the color of the clothes the stranger was wearing? Must I be questioned like some common criminal? He asked, turning to the head judge. Answer the question, ordered Judge Shalom. There was silence. Then the head judge reminded him, if you want your testimony to be accepted, you must answer the questions truthfully. For the second time, Deborah asked Katan, what was the color of the clothes the stranger was wearing? His clothes were white, he said hesitantly. Noticing the contradiction in their testimony, Deborah asked, are these men who the prosecutors call reliable witnesses? I'm finished, Your Honor, she said, as she noticed the judge nodding his head in approval. The prosecutor glared at Deborah and rose to his feet and called for the defendant Zedekiah. Did you commit the crimes as alleged by the two witnesses? No, absolutely not. I love my husband, and I would not do anything like that, she assured him. Where were you on that day and at the time stated by these two men? Asked one of the judges. I was at home. Was there anybody else in your house with you, male, female, or both? No, I was the only one at home, Your Honor. Do you have anything to add to cast light on this case? There was a period of silence in which Zedekiah didn't say anything, and the judges stared at her, waiting. I shall repeat. Do you have anything to add? We are waiting, replied the judge. No, she murmured. These are evil men. There was a deep silence and pause as the judges looked at her with wonderment in her eyes. Are there any more statements that anyone would like to make? There was a long silence, but no answer. Now we shall recess and then bring you our decision. Deborah, would you like to join us in our discussion? I would consider that an honor. Ooh. That was chapter 3 and chapter 4. Deborah about to go sit with the judges. That was chapter 3 and chapter 4. Of Barak and Deborah United by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. Barak and Deborah united. Man, I kind of want to keep going. I kind of want to keep going. It's sounding to be like real similar to the history of Susanna and the wicked governors who were trying to do her dirty until Daniel stepped in. 5, 6. Yeah. Well, we'll stop there. We'll stop there. And we'll come back next time with chapter 5 and chapter 6. Chapter 5 and chapter 6. Deborah is going in with the judges. She is going to talk with the judges. To think of the situations Deborah sat in on with her uncle Yoetz in the council of the, just in the knowing about the 70 elders. I don't know. I have to go back and see if Deborah is actually, I think that's part of fiction, but the thought of it, the thought of the things that were being talked about by the council of the 70 elders. It sounds like the court system now. Sound like some people in cahoots. Yeah, but we'll keep going. So far, so good. It's turning out to be, I definitely can pull some of the history that they're pulling it from, some similarities to scriptures. But we'll keep going and see what we can learn and grow from Barak and Deborah united. Barak and Deborah united. I know she didn't have that reputation like she had in here for nothing. She had to be, for her to be sitting up there with the judges and the 70 elders. She had to study to show herself approved. Yeah, man. But till next time. Shalom. Shalom, everybody. Reading with Shilo. Shilo out. Shilo is out.